If you're a small creator not making money, you're probably doing it wrong. This was me too for 11 years, and I left a lot of money on the table. So in this video, I'm going to share the 2 biggest mistakes I made, how to fix them, and how you could be making a lot more money right now. If you want to make money as a creator, picking your niche is the single most important decision you will ever make. And yet, for some reason, many small creators just pick the first thing they can think of and then spend the next 5 years trying to make it work. Don't get me wrong, having a bias for action is great because many people don't even make it that far, but with a little bit of extra planning before you start, you can save yourself years of hard work without making any money. Consider this experience from my life as an example of what not to do. My first experience as a creator was running a fan page for my favorite basketball player. I started this in high school because I thought it would be fun, but also in the back of my head, I thought it might be cool to make some money as well. So I worked tirelessly over the next few years to grow my following, and then I eventually monetized my YouTube channel, and that's how I made my first dollar 7 years later. Now I'm guessing if you're watching this, you probably don't want to wait 7 years to make your first dollar, so let me show you the framework I now use for picking a profitable niche. By the way, if you need help making money as a creator, I've created a free monetization roadmap that you can download using the first link in the description. The part of the framework that we're going to go through in this video is the first 2 steps in the roadmap, and like I mentioned, this is going to help us pick a profitable niche. Alright, so the first step of the framework is to brainstorm ideas. But rather than thinking about your topic here, we're going to start by picking our ideal follower. In other words, who are you going to create content for? So if I was going to do this exercise, I would list out people like first-time fathers, entrepreneurs, sports fans, or college students. These are all people that are similar to me and would describe a stage of life that I either am in right now or have been in before. Now, the reason you want to choose this first is because of how algorithms work. If you try and create content for an entire topic at once, it's going to be really hard to grow because there's going to be way more competition. Also, your audience will later become your customers. So you want to make sure you build an audience of people who are able and willing to spend money. So if I was looking at this list, college students is something that sticks out to me because I was recently a college student. But the more I think about it, college students are usually poor. So it may not be the best idea to build an audience full of poor people. So instead of choosing college students, I'm going to choose first-time fathers. And your ideal follower doesn't have to be someone just like you. It's just going to be a lot easier if it is because you know all the pain points, what they're interested in, and what's going to perform the best. All right, now we are going to choose our topic. So once again, we're going to want to brainstorm a list of ideas that we might want to make content about, and then pick one to pair with our ideal follower. So if I was doing this exercise, I would list out stuff like time management, investing, personal finance, online business, soccer, basketball, and football. And looking at this list, most likely one of those first 4 things I listed is going to work the best for our ideal follower. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to choose time management. If I pair time management with first-time fathers, that sounds like a great pairing because first-time fathers have just experienced a major disruption to their daily routine, and so they may be looking for some help to get back on track. All right, so the first part of the framework helped us to choose a potential niche idea. But before you run off and start creating content, we first need to validate that idea. Remember, we don't want to spend 5 years creating content and only then realize we've chosen a niche with a low ceiling. So the first thing you want to do to validate your idea is check the growth potential. I like to do this by checking for other creators in my niche that are already succeeding. Some people may see competition as a sign not to choose a niche, but in many cases, it's actually the exact opposite. If someone is already succeeding in your niche, they've done the hard work for you of validating that your idea works, and then with just a few little tweaks, you can differentiate differentiate yourself and still succeed in that same niche. So as I research my niche, the main thing I'm looking for is whether the existing creators are doing brand deals, posting affiliate links, or selling their own products or services. Yes, follower count is important, but it's not the main thing I'm looking for because we're trying to make money here. So to research our niche idea, I went to YouTube and searched for time management for first-time fathers, and I came across a couple YouTube channels with over 100,000 followers that seemed to be doing pretty well. And after a little more digging, I found they both had a social media presence, and it looked like the main way they were monetizing is through selling a course. Now, the reason I used YouTube to do this is because it has an excellent search engine, and that will allow me to find these creators, and then I can look for their existing social media presence and ways they're monetizing from there. Also, if someone has been able to succeed on YouTube, that is a pretty good sign that this is a good niche. That being said, it can be difficult to know exactly how much someone is making. So if you want to go a little deeper, you can try DMing the person and asking them about it if they're willing to share. Or if the person is really big, oftentimes there's a podcast episode or some other interview on another channel you can find where they've talked about how much they're making. Basically, the idea is to figure out whether the existing creators are actually making money so that you don't waste your time. And based on the research I did, I feel pretty confident saying that our niche idea is profitable. All right, the second way you validate your niche idea is by making sure it's evergreen. Can you say with certainty that your niche will still be relevant in a year, 5 years? What about beyond that? If you can't answer those questions with certainty, chances are your niche is based on a trend. And that means your success is going to be based on the popularity of the trend, which is something you can't control. For example, my Jimmer Fredette fan page was not an evergreen niche idea because not only do basketball players only play for 10 to 20 years, they can also get injured or their performance can decline. So if I was going to do it over again, I would not start a page like that unless I was doing it for fun. But we're planning to create content for first-time fathers about time management. So let's run that idea through our filters. Will there still be fathers in a year? Yep. Will there still be fathers in 5 years? You bet. And will there still be fathers beyond that? Definitely. Humans will always have children, so there's always going to be demand for content directed at first-time fathers. That means our ideal follower fits the criteria and is considered evergreen. Now let's do our topic. Can we say with certainty that people will still be interested in time management in a year? Yes. What about 5 years? I think so. And beyond that, of course. Once again, time will always exist, so there's always going to be demand for content about how to manage your time more effectively. So that means we have a winner here. Creating content about time management for first-time fathers would be a profitable niche. All right, so now that we've got that taken care of, now let's talk about the second mistake creators make. Regardless of whether you're an educational or an entertainment creator, it's important that you understand how the money is actually made on social media. And shout out to Callaway for creating a framework that makes it super easy to understand this concept. In his view, there are 3 layers to social media. On the bottom, you've got the platform layer, where social media platforms make money by running ads, and then when users see them, they get paid. Then in the middle, you've got the media layer, which is people posting content. And then you've got the offering layer, which is where brands or creators sell products or services. Callaway's learning is that most of the value is generated at the platform layer and the offering layer, but there's very little generated at the media layer. In other words, it's more effective for a creator to use their content to generate attention and then funnel people to a product or service, as opposed to relying on things like ad revenue or brand deals. So what does this look like tactically? Well, if I want to create content for first-time fathers about time management, then my content is important for building credibility and trust, and I will likely make a good amount from ad revenue and brand deals, but if I want to make real money, I need to have an offer. I need to have something like one-on-one coaching, digital product, paid community, or anything else that helps my audience solve their problem. That way, I'm not relying on my content alone to generate revenue. I have an actual business model on the back end that's generating most of the revenue. If I provide content that is genuinely helpful, then a percentage of my audience will be willing to pay me for that solution. In other words, if you are an educational creator, you should be running things like a business, not a media network. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I've made as a creator, and nothing illustrates it better than my experience with X monetization. If you're not familiar, I built most of my audience by teaching people everything I knew about X's monetization program. I spent over a year and a half learning the ins and outs of the program in order to teach people the best I could, and all I got in return was a few $100s. Now, whether or not this was a profitable niche is another conversation, but in my opinion, the main problem is that I was trying to run an education business with an entertainment business model. So that meant I made way less money. Sure, I made some money, but if I had had a clear offer, I would have made a lot more. So if you're an educational creator, don't fall into the trap I did. But what if you're an entertainment creator? Well, you're still gonna have an offer, it's just gonna look a little different. Instead of offering things like coaching, you're gonna offer things like merch, live events, paid content, or other physical products. For example, MrBeast has Feastables and ViewStats, KSI and Logan Paul have Prime, and Ryan Trahan has Joyride Sweets. These creators understand that in order to have a sustainable business as a creator, you need to have some kind of offer on the back end of your content. And this is nothing new. Even in the early days of online content creation, people like Smosh, Ryan Higa, and PewDiePie made millions from their content, but they also monetized heavily through their own products. So the second mistake that many small creators make is relying too much on ad revenue and not understanding where the value is actually generated. So if you are able to fix this by creating an offer and pairing it with a profitable niche, you're gonna make a lot more money a lot faster. Speaking of making money, click the video on screen if you wanna learn additional ways that you can monetize your audience.